Last year really was a pretty tough year. I mean, it was hot and dry, and even with, about 95% of our acres in the state are irrigated, we still had a lot of issues and impacts with the hot weather and drought. And this year, producers, one thing we saw last year was when we had really low yields, a lot of times the timing of that irrigation just wasn't quite when the corn needed it. So when it got really hot and dry, we really needed to be on top on the irrigation. So laying the irrigation pipe early, being set, I think that's one thing we really need to focus on for this year. Yeah, corn is typically the crop we plant earliest, right? And so I looked at the ag statistics report that it says we've planted 2% of the crop, which, is not much. 5-year average is about 6%. So we're a little bit behind because of the wet weather, but yeah, typically we're going to start planting, South Arkansas end of February sometimes, and we've got corn planted this year. There was a little dry window in there that we got some corn planted in South Arkansas in February. But, the wet weather is definitely a hindrance, and so, our acreage right now is not all that far behind, but it could quickly get behind. We get another week or two of wet weather. But, I guess the upside is, a lot of our equipment, we can really cover the acres, and so pretty quickly. So if we get a 10-day window of good weather, we could pretty much plant the whole crop in 10 days if we wanted to. We want to get things planted timely, and so there's a window that we can maximize our yield, and when insurance says we can maximize our yield. And so typically, South Arkansas to North Arkansas, depending on where you're at, but mid-March up until the end of April, 1st of May, somewhere in there, depending on where you're at, like I say. But we've got a good month from now that we can still maximize our yields and get things planted. So even though it's been wet, I think we still got plenty of opportunity to get things done. Thinking back to last year, it was wet, and so we had a lot of acres that were intended to be planted to corn that ultimately ended up being planted to soybeans or something else. And so we ended up planting 750,000 acres, which historically that's a lot of corn. And so this year, the fertilizer prices have come down, fortunately. Last year we were looking at record prices. The grain prices earlier in the season were higher. They've come down a little bit. So those two things, fertilizer prices come down. We've still got decent corn prices. So the expectation right now is that our corn acres will be up in the state. And so of course that's dependent on the weather, right? If we can get it planted here in the next month. So I think right now people are excited about corn. There's anticipated more corn acres being planted this year. I think for corn, it's always about stand and how things grow off. So, we spend so much time and effort planting in the right time frames to, the time that we can get the best stand. So, we've done a lot of planting date studies, and ultimately there's a wide window. There's probably a month time frame in there, depending on where you're at. Full month of April, maybe a little bit earlier than that in South Arkansas, where we can maximize yield. So in that time frame, I want to plant. I don't want to plant in front of a big rain. Planting right ahead of that, you may get a great stand, you may not. So corn, the stand is everything, and if you don't have a good stand to begin with, you're not going to be able to have that really high yield that you're looking for. So planting timely, taking care of our ryegrass, and then timely inputs, timely fertilizer, timely irrigation. We can grow really good corn if we got good weather and we have timely inputs.